Husband 26M is kicking me 26F and son 2M. I have no one to turn to. How do I make him take us back? Story 1. English is not my first language, and I already know what I did was bad, no, horrible. I have no excuses, and feel like it. Please do give advice on what to do after this, as I have absolutely no idea on what to do after this. Background: we met in college, when we were both 18. It was in no way a fairy tale, we had to fight for lots of issues. Not only did we have our usual couple dynamics, we also had our families hate each other. We're in India, caste is still a huge thing, even in cities. My family is a high caste family, and he is not low caste per se, but still lower than ours. However, we still made it work, in spite of all challenges. We got engaged at 22 after he finished his college, and I never bothered to study after my undergraduate degree, as I always thought I'd be a homemaker, supporting him. I studied psychology, and then worked a few jobs to support myself and him, as by the end of college, I was kicked out as my relationship was discovered. He too was kicked out, and we had a difficult time trying to find a home, as unmarried couples are kind of taboo. Yet, we managed, and I worked, he studied, and after he completed college on a partial scholarship, he found a well-paying job with benefits. We married at 23, and life was a dream for some time. We had a good relationship, he was sweet, smart, and caring. But one issue where I was disappointed was our time life. He was unsatisfactory. He is not well endowed and is rather small, but also wasn't good without it. I would always be the one who took the lead, and tried to use different techniques to make it pleasurable for the both of us, but nothing worked. That was the one area where he was elking. However, we had a good time other than that. But almost after 9 months, everything changed. In 2018, his father died. We were still not communicating much with our families, but at least his used to ask about us time to time. We never heard from my side, and they always ignored me when I tried to reconnect. He was very close to his father, and his family allowed him to come and see him before he died. This death affected him badly. He was a little distant, and initially I understood, but after some time, I missed him, as it felt like he was around less and less. This affected him in a professional way too, as his sudden fall in performance caused his colleague to be promoted over him, and he became his boss. This colleague was the one who would destroy our lives as we knew it. Let's call him C. He was everything my husband was not in terms of personality. My husband was shy, reserved and quiet, while C was the loud, boisterous, party-loving, funny guy. He was also very flirty initially. We met at one of his office dinners, where C constantly flirted with me initially. I was offended as he knew I was married to his employee, but as the parties increased, as he was a relaxed type of boss, who invited all of his employees out often to parties and other activities, he started to flirt more and more, and my defenses started to fall. Things only got worse as it seemed like my husband was drifting further and further. Eventually, I fell for his charms, and returned it by lightly flirting when it was just two of us. This must have given him some kind of boost, as now he doubled down. He started inviting us, like me and husband and him alone. He was single, which I found weird as he was also just the same age as us, 24 then, 26 now. My husband, meanwhile, got worse and started smoking. I tried to get him to leave it, but he refused. By this time we were fighting much more often. C, on the other hand, was now getting more and more flirty, and we started an emotional affair. Eventually, one day before office, me and hubby fought, and when he left, I called C, and he took a leave. I found it touching that my own husband always fought me, but C came after one call. At that point, We hooked up. That was one of the best ones I've ever had. All of my frustrations, all this built up energy finally came out. Not only was he much bigger than my husband, he was much better at techniques and stamina too. This started an affair that dragged out for too long. I eventually got pregnant by C, and here my husband changed. At this point, when I told him, he was quiet for a second, and then grew ecstatic, believing that the child was his. I was so scared, I lied that it was his, and hid my affair. He changed virtually overnight, and became everything he was before. He again became caring and sweet, and he stayed this way till now. At this point I should have ended this affair, but I didn't. I thought I had fallen in love with C. He and I continued this affair, till now. After the quarantine, which was kept in place since March this year and is partially happening till now, was lifted of major restrictions, we met in July, when I got pregnant again. I intended to stop this affair and get in an official relationship with C for some time now, and he agreed with me on that. But unfortunately, 1 week ago he finally told his family about me. He did not mention anything else, only the basics like he had won. But as soon as he said my name, it was doomed. C is of a different religion. Interfaith marriage and intercaste marriage are both taboos. So his family immediately rejected me. And since he is very close with his family, he broke it off. To make matters worse, somehow, his phone's chats were all leaked, and his entire office, with my husband, discovered our affair. Husband is absolutely devastated. I have tried apologizing, but it doesn't seem like he'll forgive me. He also took paternity tests of my son, and when it was revealed he wasn't his child, started hating him too. He has already kicked me out, as the house was under his name. He has filed for divorce, and now I am staying at a friend's house. My family simply ignored me. Now, I am at a loss of what to do. Please, I know I am a trashy person, a W.O., and everything bad. But I really need advice on what to do, as I really want a father figure in life for my children. Legally, he will win in any case that comes up. Is there any way to reconcile? Redditor's reactions. Redditor 1, okay. There's no advice. The only victim here is husband. You wouldn't even care about him if his boss accepted you. You get what you deserved. Redditor 2, I am getting tired of this crap. This subreddit is for relationship advice, not how do I manipulate the poor sucker I've been defrauding for years to take me back. Think I'm being too harsh? Well, it's the truth. Here's the real TL. Dr. You were married to the man for 3 years, cheated on him for at least 2 years, that's 67% of the time, and then he found out through a totally random incident. You were content to hide the affair and the fact that your kids are not his because it was easier. You were going to marry the person you were cheating with. You no longer love your husband or want a relationship with him, you want to not be homeless. Grow up, accept responsibility for what you did, take the kid to his father's house, not your husband, and get a job. There is no way to reconcile. You agreed to get married, for better or worse, but as soon as your husband's dad passed away and things got tough, you ran away. You still talk on here to random internet strangers about how bad the time was, and yet expect advice on getting back with him. If he was on here, you'd tell him to get a paternity test for the child you're pregnant with, and if it isn't his, to cut any and all ties with you. The thing I want to be clear on, this isn't about the fact that you had an affair, although that itself is hugely bad, but in reading your post, it's clear that you don't love your husband and haven't for a long time. You want someone else, but that fell through and you have nowhere to go. That's the manipulation I am talking about. Otherwise, I might try to give you some sort of advice on reconciliation, You can reconcile after an affair, but the offending party has to be seriously remorseful, not just trying to get out of a bad situation. Hell, reading this, you're gonna cheat on the man as soon as you get another chance. Story 2. I cheated on my husband only 2 months after our wedding, and I never intend to tell him. Background: early on in our relationship, we were long distance and it was rough on both of us. We both cheated on one another, although my cheating was longer and more extensive. After we moved in together, he found a confession journal of mine. Why I didn't padlock the damn thing, I'll never know. Read it, confronted me, and also told me about his indiscretion. There was crying and a few days of bewilderment, but we got over it. Interlude: after getting very drunk at my best friend's wedding in 2006, I had a one-night stand with a friend of the bride who was just coming off a divorce. Damn, I played it off in my head as if I was doing a public service for the guy, getting him back on the track of actually like himself, which did happen. Actually, he went on to be a major player in a successful gubernatorial campaign, and ended up copping a job in the administration. However, after my walk of shame in the morning, I told myself no more. I wasn't going to do this to anymore, and I was going to turn over a new leaf. So, I moved in with him. There was the thing with the journal, and then nothing. He proposed, and we ended up getting married in 2009. The problem: 2 months after our wedding, I dropped my newly minted husband off at the airport to go away for a conference. Since I had driven to a major city to do this, I looked up a friend who lived in the city, to hang out and catch up. Well, call him Dan. 2 things about Dan: he's like a gentleman's gentleman. He opens doors, scoots you into your seat, and pays for everything. Chivalry is not dead in his eyes. Second, he towers over my 59 height with his 65 height. He's the only person I've ever met that makes me feel dainty. Either way, we hang out, talk, eat, drink a duck-ton of alcohol. Driven to confess by the ethanol, Dan blurts out how he hasn't had time in over a year, and is beginning to doubt himself with women, and has even tried to think about guys. I make the appropriate soothing noises, and the evening goes on. We drink even more alcohol, including stopping on the way back to his apartment to pick up tonic for GTs, and once we get back to the apartment, we continue to chat. Dan had been unable to come to our wedding because of a work commitment, so I had actually brought the DVD with our wedding pictures on it to show him. That right, I was showing him my wedding pictures when things got nasty. I was sitting on his lap, because of no other chairs in his bedroom, and realized that I was wearing garters and stockings because they were pressed into him. One thing led to another, and all of a sudden, I was on the floor, in front of his fireplace, moaning for all I was worth, with the skirt of my dress hiked up around my waist. Things moved to bed eventually, and I'm pretty sure between the 2 of us, we woke up both his roommates. I later found out that it was the first time he had ever received OAL. He had just turned 29. And also his first time doing AAL. In my strange brain, I was kind of proud of all this, and very glad that he felt so much better about his time-morality and his prowess with women. Oh, and let me tell you, Redditors, in his year off, he had not lost his skill. The 3 or 4 times we had time that night was ducking fantastic. In fact, I can still remember how sore my pussy felt the next day from him. God, it was good. However, on the drive back home the next morning, I had an attack of conscience. Had already sent me some lurid texts, and one photo of his DCK. I flipped out on him. "I'm a married woman, you can't be sending my it like that," and on in that fashion. It was pretty horrible of me. I told him not to text me until I figured out my brain a little better. Conclusion, and that brings us up to today, my friends. I've somehow managed to not tell my husband, keep up the friendship with Dan, and I have absolutely no intention of ever telling my husband. It would do nothing but hurt him. And, if I'm being honest with myself, having time with Dan was a public service, and I had been faithful for over 3 years. Mainly the reason I'm confessing is that I'm weakening again, and am trying to figure out if I can see Dan again. TLDR, I'm a bad girl. Edit, I came here to confess, not to ask advice from people on my marriage. I will not be answering any comments containing the word divorce.